Good morning. Good morning, everybody out there in beautiful Facebook land. So, yes, the coast of California is going to have some kind of tropical storm or hurricane. And it's so unprecedented, not since 19 or 18 or something, 30 or 13. And of course, what happened to Maui, Hawaii was so unprecedented. Nothing like that happened since who knows when. So we're entering into some eras of unprecedented going on. And, I told you, we're in a great reset. I know that humans have been programmed. I know all these movies are a reflection of our society. Why it seems like these movies are so unreal is because we have never encountered certain people in those movies. And you hope you never do encounter some of the characters in the movies out there. But Shakespeare was pretty ahead of his time. And when they developed those specific drugs to bring up humors, and we'll go into that later, then that's how he developed the stories and then shaped society and then all the plays. And that's why Shakespeare is so popular in college as well as in school, because Shakespeare shaped society with Smile Now, Cry Later. All the different characters and actors in Hollywood are a reflection of bioengineering and the stories, and then a reflection of where society was, what it's going on right now, and where society wants to go in the future. Okay, that's why I get to watch movies from that point of view. I don't watch all the slapstick comedies out there because how many times can I watch a cannabis movie about people doing stupid shit when they're high on cannabis, right? So I like to watch things that give me an idea and a glimpse of the human condition, because then I can figure out what's going on. Hey baby, what's going on? Jay, what's going on? Oh no. You're on Facebook Live, so watch where you're walking by. I know you're not naked. Huh. So anyway, so that's why I watch movies, because it gives me a glimpse on the human condition and the types of people out there. Even though you may never encounter certain types of people out there and you don't want to encounter them, that's why you watch the movies that have more of a cerebral intention, or how humans strategize their survival, whether through criminal activity or out there in the wilderness or even family social situations. And so right now we're going through a great reset. There's so much redundancy, so many clones out there, not only in Hollywood, yes, but also out there in the world. And the world has been programmed by the actors and actresses, and by the stories, and by the politicians, the religious figures, and then the sciences that are around that develop people. And so given that I was raised in a household of chemical engineering, behavior engineering, and of course in Silicon Valley, the tech industry, that's the best of all the worlds to understand how society has been engineered and programmed. And then you have to find evidence to show you how it's being programmed and what is programming people. Because people think they're just there. That's who they are. Yeah, it is. They're not aware they can change their programming, but it does take work. But you can't make someone change their programming. You can't force someone to face what they have to do to change their programming so they're not suffering so exponentially. And so right now, during this climate change, all these crazy things, Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, and then over in California pretty soon, that storm, that hurricane is building energy. Of course, it's warm waters down there. It'll eventually hit that cold waters of the coast. So it might take down from a Category 4 hurricane to a Category 2, but that's still exponential moisture and wetness for an area that has been predominantly dry during the season. So you can imagine the mudslides, the flash floods, and the the pooling of the water, the floods. It's going to be insane. And so the system is wearing down people's resistance. All right, bye, baby. I love you. Have fun. So the system is wearing down people's resistance with stressful weather. That is how they will force you to submit. That is what's literally going on. You won't submit. They will force you to submit through climate change. When you have no electricity and you're underwater, you will submit. When you are stuck with some aggressive disease, you will submit. When you are surrounded by wildfires done by DEWs, you will submit. That is why you must strategize your survival. You can't fight the weather and what it does to your internal and external infrastructure. You must strategize. And so right now we're going through a trial by fire, by wind, by rain, and by air. Okay? Fire, you know what's going on, trial by fire. Wind, you know all the hurricanes and tornadoes and all that, and the gusty winds. And you know the rain, the water is going to kick people's asses. And of course the air. What do you mean by the air? Well, the air holds the fire, the wind, and the rain. And of course the air can be influenced by frequencies, invisible forces that you can't fucking see. Okay, so we're all going to go through these trials and tribulations. And either you're going to survive it and figure it out, or you're not. And that's what people are facing right now. And so the system knows how weak your children are right now. And so when I said yesterday, when I saw that they were focusing on a hurricane, and I knew we're in hurricane season, it was either going to be the Atlantic and coming up that way and hitting Florida or the East Coast, but I never even would imagine it was going to go through the Pacific and go right towards fucking California. But then we've been seeing indicators. They've had little tornadoes over there, down in the LA proper, like South Central area. They had a little tornado, and they've been having some pretty heavy storms like we have. But I didn't think that they would have a tornado come through. I figured people would be boiled out because the heat is so intense over there. But no, they're going to add water to it. They're going to fuck people up. And so if you're in LA, get out and go to higher ground. Why risk it? Now, not higher ground really, because you could be on a landslide. So when you think about it, we see like it's a 600-mile wide hurricane type of thing. And it can go left or it can go right. So there's no really way of knowing where you're going to go if you're going to leave your area. But I would say if you figure out the towns, like I know the towns out there. If I was in LA, like literally like in LA, not only in the valley, like San Fernando Valley, but South Central, East LA, West LA, whatever, you know that there's going to be looting, there's going to be people just suffering, there's going to be animals suffering, humans, and you're going to be watching all this, and you know these are your neighbors or people that you sort of know, or just people that you know are exist, but you never really interacted with them, and they're going to be in your face. And so if you go you go up north, more into the Central Valley where it's spread out, maybe you don't get as much riffraff, but then you have shit to protect. Like you have so many things in your house that they're so valuable to you, people will sacrifice themselves to guard their property. That's what happens when you collect so many valuable goods and you're so emotionally connected to all of your trinkets that you will stay at your house even though there's shit going on, and you won't leave because you got to guard your house. You got to guard your shit. And that's why I don't have anything that I really am connected to, because if I have to fucking leave, I'm not worried about, oh God, I can't leave this huge painting that's like $10,000 or $20,000 by Marc Chagall or $1 million. I mean, I'm not letting those little things stop me from saving myself. And so that's those who are in LA who have money are going to be stuck with that situation, because they know people who want stuff, like those flash mobs that go and rob the stores in these malls. Well, you imagine in really rich areas that are inundated with water, and the riffraff from the other side of the tracks comes and like, oh yeah, we got a freaking free-for-all here. And so I'm not playing that game. But that's what I'm saying right now. If you're in LA, get out and go to higher ground or go somewhere up north. But if you have shit to protect, then you're fucked. You have kids, I say, right? I mean, I hope that hurricane fizzles out, but again, you can't live on hope. If nothing happens, you practice your exit strategy. Do it now. Practice your exit strategy while your neighbors are oblivious. And so when that hurricane came up the coast a couple of years ago, and I thought it was going to make a left and go over New York and over Pennsylvania and then eventually to Ohio. Well, that's not that difficult when you see that cone of that hurricane track on the left side of California. It's going all the way up to freaking North Nevada. Okay? I mean, it's going through some shit. Now, would you get the strength of storms like from the hurricane when it comes from the water? Well, I'll tell you, no matter what, with how all this climate engineering going on, there's nothing. All bets are off. You can't assume that a hurricane that's strong over there on the coast can't be strong even here, because you can always do stuff. Because what happens when we get storms here, it gets really windy, really fast, okay? And the storm comes through, and the lightning flash and everything. It's like, okay, so you know that if they can steer a hurricane going up the fucking coast and then fizzle out. Because I really seriously thought that one hurricane a couple years ago was going to make a left. And I'm just like, oh God, here we go. Okay, so, all bets are off. You gotta realize that anything can happen. So I don't have anything around my house that I am so emotionally attached to. I can lose everything and I'd be okay. I could lose everything and I would be okay. And so, give me 1 second. Sorry. But that's the thing, is you don't want to have anything you're emotionally attached to, because then you will risk your life guarding it. That's why I don't have any animals or kids right now, because that's the situation people are in. They have to risk their life to save something. Okay. All right. So beat the traffic, because it sucks to be stuck in traffic at the 11th hour. Look what happened in Lahaina, Maui. And LA is so populous. That's what I was trying to tell people yesterday. Don't assume it's going to fizzle out. Most everyone who is thinking ahead are going to figure out a game plan, exit strategy. But again, if you have shit to protect and you have valuables in your house that you can't put on your back, in your backpack and leave, that's what people are fucking facing. So beat the traffic, because it sucks to be stuck in traffic at the 11th hour. Look what happened in Lahaina, Maui. LA is so populous. I could not tell you where to go, because a hurricane is said to cover all of SoCal, all the way up to Fresno, and even beyond that, okay, up to Nevada and everything else. And so you see what's feeding the storm. So you see the waters over here are feeding, like the waters are warm, and then you see all these storms coming through this way. So it's like a J. That's not like this, but it's a J like this. And so the water's coming this way from west to east, and then it's feeding from south to north. So it's fueling that hurricane. All the warm water is fueling that hurricane until it hits the colder water up by the coast. But still, going from a category 4 to category 2, that's still going to do a devastation to the whole coastal area. And then all the inundation of rain, especially like in Nevada and Arizona. And so when there's chaos, when there is weather chaos, infrastructure breaks down, looting, so much stuff is going on. And so I would figure out a plan. I'd figure out and plan your exit strategy. What? Out of San Fernando Valley or LA County, that's what it is. Or out of LA County or San Fernando Valley. And I couldn't tell you where to go, because again, it's a 600-mile wide hurricane. But I would rather be dealing with less people up north when you get to, maybe Bakersfield. Because even Santa Barbara could be, Santa Barbara wouldn't be bad. But still, it just depends on what kind of torture are you willing to deal with. But you got to know the areas. And people in LA know what goes on up north. But oh my God, I'm glad I don't live in California. And so, because eventually it's going to happen in Sacramento. And what are people going to fucking do? Okay? And so, literally people have to start thinking ahead. They have to think of the worst. They have to think the worst. And so when you think about it, when those with money are able to leave LA and the Valley, they might save themselves. Those who plan poorly or are financially poor will be suffering, assuming they survive. While everyone is busy with Hawaii and its devastation, they don't see that elephant in the room, that thing building up over there in the Pacific. Well, that's how allegedly Hawaii was decimated, was because the hurricane wind 700 miles away was, but we all know that's a cover story. And right now they're also blaming the power lines that went down. And then they're blaming Hawaii Electric for a failing grid. And I'm like, okay, even if the power lines going down may have sparked something, it doesn't spark that kind of aggressive devastation that happened. But again, if people don't know physics and they're not really willing to look at and ask the questions, because it's too much, they'll just take it for face value. Oh, they can blame it on Hawaii Electric, or blame it on the power lines, or blame the winds and blame the hurricane 700 miles away. And there you go. They're satisfied with that story. And that's fine. There's that story. There's another story that's intentional and someone else is doing it. Okay, fine. So you have all the freedom to believe whatever the hell you want. But when you think about it, it really doesn't matter, because the end result is if you have devastation, people are suffering, and they're going to have to figure it out. So that's what I'm saying. I don't discount anything happening over here. I know anything can fucking happen. Anything can happen. And you still have to keep moving, and you still have to find a way to stay viable and just keep your head up without being too happy or too sad or too concerned. You just got to strategize. But again, if there's a storm, like we had a storm last night, and a transformer exploded and it took out the electricity and all of over where I live, but not my area. Yeah, that could hit a smart meter and explode your house. And so I'm like, a very well-positioned lightning bolt could hit things and make things explode. That is completely possible. And even if you didn't have a smart meter, just the kind of lightning that's out right now could hit your house in a certain way and everything would go to shit. It could hit your gas. It could hit anything. Okay, so you can't rule out anything. So now you just got to hope that lightning doesn't get so close to your house, and that hopefully the telephone poles will be that barrier between you and the lightning, because that's the highest peak, or the trees. That's where we live in. Okay, so low profile houses is probably better. I have a high profile house, but whatever. But lower profile is so much better nowadays. Yeah. People got to let people know what's going on. You can't save people over there in Hawaii. They have to figure it out now. It's up to them and the government and the people around them. They'll figure it out. So, yeah. So, SoCal, Nevada, and Arizona. And, all right. And so, yeah, I was watching the fires, watching the new YouTube videos of the fires in Canada. Canada's burning up. There's even one town called Yellow Pine that 20,000 people had to evacuate. 20,000 people. That's one whole town that must evacuate an area in Canada and get to Calgary and other places. Okay, so that's taking people from the rural areas, right? And then bringing them into the cities like Calgary. That's kind of what's going on. So I, in a lot of ways, I don't think much is going to happen where I'm at, because I'm not in Cleveland, so to speak, but I'm in the populace of Canton, Akron, Cleveland, Youngstown. And it's all right up here where it's not too rural. It seems kind of sometimes, but it's not. When you get more to the outskirts, like even southern Ohio, that's where you're going to get all the crazy tornadoes. Of course, the south, because it's warmer. But they're trying to move everybody into the cities. So in a lot of ways, I think I'm probably safe right now when you think about it, versus being somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. When you think like Canada or Yellow Pine, and Canada is huge. Canada is so huge. There's so much beauty and so much land. And so when they're trying to herd the people out from those areas, well, the wildfires are going to be the ones. So you got to have your head on a swivel. You can't afford to mourn too much from the last devastation, because you could be up next. You and your town could be devastated next. Don't give away your money to everyone trying to save people who are already suffering. You need to save yourself and your money, because you could end up in a car going 300 miles north to get out of the path of a storm, and you need money to do that, and you need money to move. everyone was given a warning of climate change. Now you have to save yourself. And so I heard that FEMA was stopping certain items from getting through, and places are asking for so much help and donations, and everyone's giving money, and all these stars are like, oh, give me money here, give me money there. And okay, the thing is, you have to think about, okay? You have to think about your family. The system wants you all to feel sorry for everybody and the devastated areas, because then you give all your money away, and then when the devastation comes to you, you have nothing left really for yourself. You've given it all away. Well, people shouldn't be giving if they can't afford it. People do so many stupid things all the time. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is going to change their mind. If they're going to give, they're going to give. But that's kind of the situation, is that when the system develops all these natural disasters, and then people are like, oh God, time to give money this, that's another money-making situation. No different than giving to Red Cross and all these different institutions, giving to FEMA. It's just lining the coffers of somebody who's going to then redevelop that area. Okay, fine. Well, they can print money if they want to. The government can print as much money as they want to. But if they can take money from you and handicap you from movement, because you can't print money, you're not supposed to, but the government can. And so if they get you to separate yourself from your money, then you are at a disadvantage of mobility, because you are bleeding your heart dry by watching all the devastation and thinking you're going to save the fucking world when there's no chance you're going to fucking save anyone. And so let the government figure it out. Let the people figure it out. Okay? Because the government, again, has endless fucking resources. They have printing presses back there that they can make whatever the hell they want. They can pay people to take money from people to keep them under control. Okay? So don't fall into these psychological manipulations of giving away your money to people who are suffering, because I'll tell you, they will figure it out. And if they can't figure it out, they weren't meant to. They weren't strong enough for this crazy climate that's going on. The system wants you all to feel sorry for everybody in devastated areas, and then you can't even move yourself. And so when you give away your money to somebody else, you have nothing for yourself to help you get out of harm's way or help you move away. Don't get caught up with the bleeding hearts. They will save you to death as well as themselves, because they will milk you dry and they will milk themselves dry. And so they have to deal with their situation. And the government must help them. Okay? And so anyways, it's about the strong surviving and everything else. And I'm serious, this is what's going on right now. And I'm not falling for any of the bleeding heart shit. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I just know the manipulations that are going on. I'm not falling for it. So actually, I feel better today. All right. Yesterday, I'm going to give you a little story yesterday. Oh my God. So I still had the Jell-O. Remember I took a picture of the Jell-O, and I'm like, okay, so I got rid of, whatever. I pulled out that fucking demon. No more demon. Okay, it was great. So does that mean, can I eat some Jell-O now and see what happens? Well, I did eat some Jell-O, and I felt the same situation. I'm like, oh shit, I felt like heartburn coming up, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? And so I could feel stuff. I feel myself burping a little bit, and I could feel the pressure and all. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Did I fuck myself up again? But no, it was only very minor. It was very minor. It wasn't like it was the other day. It was very minor, and then my body reabsorbed and figured out how to. I ate a salad. See, that's the thing when I figured out the whole acid stuff. I'm pretty much at my limit of the collagen. My body has enough collagen, so taking more collagen, like in Jell-O, was no. My body was like, nope, you can't do it. You're overextended, and so then I figured out that the last time that I felt better after all of that heartburn was when I ate that salad that had the cabbage and other roughage. And it was like some kind of Asian salad with a little bit of spicy dressing. And so I did the same thing yesterday. I ate a salad, I ate half of it. And of course I felt better. And then later on, I felt better. And so even this morning, I released the demons and everything was great. I threw away all the Jell-O yesterday. My system told me, throw away that Jell-O, Jillian. You're not going to fucking eat that. You have enough collagen. You over fucking did it the other day. And so then I realized that that's the whole thing with the acids. You gotta figure out what is, that's the whole thing with the holistic world being so focused on the acids and the alkaline, and then wanting people to be so focused on alkaline because everything is acidic. Well, yeah, you are acidic. You're supposed to be highly acidic, but you're supposed to have it balanced with the alkaline. It's a balance that you can't control. The only way you control is when you feel like the heartburn, and then when you feel that heartburn, but you don't want to get to that point of feeling the heartburn. You want to be able to have a balance of your steak and cabbage. Now, I don't even want to say vegetables. Okay, you can eat a vegetable, but I don't like vegetables all the time. Okay, I can't just eat straight. I mean, I'll eat a salad, like a cabbage salad with stuff. But to have a slew of vegetables, no, cabbage for me is the most versatile and the most sturdiest alkaline vegetable to offset the acids in the steak, in the sugars, in all the different things that people have found to be acidic, but you don't, again, want to be avoiding sugar. And that's where people start starving. They're so alkaline and hardly acidic, and they waste weight in nothing. And so when I was finally back to my normal self, I was planning my weekend menu, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have some lemon caper chicken piccata. I made that before. It's a French recipe. I learned it from a French chef in the Bay Area. Chicken enchiladas and steak and green lemon rice and Greek lemon rice with mushrooms and steamed cabbage. And so, and of course, sherbet. Okay, so you really want, so now you understand the importance of having, at least cabbage. If nothing else, at least raw cabbage or cooked cabbage with your steak, with everything, with all your acids. You balance out the acids and you balance out the alkalines, but you don't become these holistic vegan people who are only alkaline, hardly any acid. Okay? You do need the meat. But again, you don't want to be doing the collagen from the Jell-O, because you can develop then an overabundance of the acid in your belly. Because that acid in your belly not only helps you keep your tissues connected, but also breaks down your food so it can be broken down and redistributed to all the different parts of your body. So when you're eating pig or pork, and it's made up of fatty acid, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, and it's in a form of a pig, then those acids break it up, and now it's not a pig anymore. Now it's just different elements, fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals, and then it gets redistributed, and it helps you become stronger. And it also helps you release the demons. And so people say, oh, you are what you eat. Not necessarily. That's another psychological manipulation, so you don't eat the foods you need to eat. And so your body must convert it. But again, what are you converting and why? Okay? And so if you have those demons in your body, that are not allowing you to convert food to your benefit, and it's turning your food into gelatin, turning you into mush, then you have to release those demons, and you literally have to pull them out. You literally have to pull out those demons. That's what causes the aging process, is the fact that these demons are causing the hormonal imbalances are allowed to stay in the body, and the person does not fight for their life. They keep feeding the demons. And that's why they age out. That's why they haven't made any differences in their personalities. Because you can see the same personalities in people. And some of you figured it out, and I don't see too much of a colorful personality. I don't see too much of the, where you can tell the love, or the angry people, or the extremely funny, witty people. Some of you, or the whole like kindness people. Some of you, I could tell that doesn't run you. That now you're figuring some shit out, and you're realizing some stuff, and you're not run by all of those specific humors, which I'll go into later. Okay? And so that's why the whole J world is the only fucking way to save yourself. Because you have been programmed, and you're suffering extremely from that programming. Your parents are, your grandparents are, your children are, your aunts and your uncles, your friends, your family, they're all suffering from the programming that was forced on them. And those humors are not only running the person, but also the programming is starting to break down. And then the opposite. I noticed with my dog, God, this is so crazy. dogs have all oxytocin. That's why they can't have chocolate or anything like that. That brings up oxytocin because it's too much for them. And so when she was going through that energy conversion and she was releasing demons and it was helping her release demons and all that stuff, because that freaking thing was so huge, that was her programming that was releasing. I was trying to reprogram her, but she became the opposite. That's why I have this angry scar here. Because when the kind, gentle dog, you know, that she was programmed to be, that I should have just, I don't say should have, but maybe I could have treated her, but then she'd be suffering, bloating up and suffering with all that acid stuck in her body. And so when I released those demons, she became a different dog, literally a different dog. And then towards the end, she became more aggressive. That's where this scar came from, because she became more aggressive. She became the opposite of what she was bred to be. And so that's what's happening with people, is that they were becoming the opposite of what they were bred to be. And so that's why people who used to be happy and all this other stuff, at some point, when that programming breaks down and they're fucking suffering, then they become crotchety, they become irritable, they become on the defense all the time. I mean, that's why you have to understand what's going on so you can release that programming and then you can reprogram yourself. But that programming is in your fucking shit. That's what has been so hard to talk about, because there's such a stigma around poop. It literally is a stigma around poop. But when you break it down to core samples and you break it down, but that is your software that programs you to be old and crotchety and decrepit. It programs you to have cancer. It programs you to have leukemia. It programs you to have Parkinson's. Every single thing in the Johns Hopkins manual of symptoms and everything in the DSM, it's all in your fucking shit. That programming of all those diagnosable conditions are in your shit. Literally, you're in your shit. And so when I realized, when I pulled out that crap from that heartburn, and then I didn't experience it anymore, and then I wanted to test to see if I could still have that jello, not realizing that I probably overextended in the collagen. I don't need any more collagen. I had my fill for however long, okay? So no more of that collagen or the jello. But then I took it again and it did whatever it had to do. And then finally yesterday, after that one little spoonful I had, because I just took a spoonful, but it was a tiny bit of reaction. And then I did a little bit of salad and now I feel great today. I released the demons this morning. And so it's a whole new day. And so that's what I'm saying. The way I release gives me the latitude to have a whole new fucking day, a whole new lease on life. Every single freaking day I release those demons, and my body forces me and helps me release those demons. I'm up at 5. When I start blowing my nose and sneezing or whatever, my body's like, it's time to release the demons. Help me help you type of thing. And that's the fucking answer to immortality. That's the answer. It's not living in a virtual world. It's not taking your soul and putting it in a fucking box and then talking to a box. No, immortality is knowing what programs you and knowing how to program yourself and how to balance out the acid and the alkaline, and then also understand thermodynamics and how that too much acid is causing so much heat. Not enough acid is then you are listless. You don't have enough energy to you. Okay? That's lack of energy. That's being phlegmatic. Okay? When you're listless and pale and there really isn't heat to you. That's what the whole humors are. And I'll go again into that later. Well, I'll just go to it right now. I'll go through this process. You'll see where I'm coming from. So now I understand all the hype around alkaline water and people avoiding acids. Total marketing gimmick. Excess acidity forces the body to borrow minerals, including calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium from vital organs, bones, and teeth to buffer whatever's going on. So that's why people are losing bone density. That's why they're losing the ability to control their vital organs and have the vital organs work for them, because they're so acidic. But again, it's not that you go and take all this alkaline shit that they're recommending and all the alkaline waters and the alkaline, only eating alkaline vegetables and all that stuff. No, because you need the balance of acid and alkaline. But if my body's so acidic, then I got to do alkaline, and that's the balance. Not necessarily, because you have that shit in your body. here's the thing. When you're tainted, when you're traumatized and tainted by something, you can't go and put new programming on something that's already been tainted and programmed. You have to then do like a blank slate type of thing. And then you can program on something that is like a whiteboard. But that whiteboard has all this markings on it, right? From all the previous classes when you're doing the dry erase board, and there's all these formulas and assignment stuff, and there's all this stuff, and then you're trying to go as a teacher, then go on behind that class and then put your own stuff for your next class. You have to erase everything on that dry erase board in order to put down the programming you want your students to get. But if you can't erase that shit and you're trying to put your programming, it's all going to muddle up with the other class's stuff. That's another analogy that you can see, is that you have to be like a dry erase board and reset the programming, which means you have to release so many of those fucking demons. Or else you're going to fuck with your body trying to be all alkaline, taking alkaline water, okay? And it's not working. I mean, you might think it's working because you're like, oh, I feel great. Then you're all happy, right? Okay. How does being happy mean that it's working? Well, it's how you feel. Okay, but then you might be laying the groundwork for something really aggressive later on when you become way imbalanced, and then you don't have enough acid because you're so alkaline. Then what are you going to do? You'll be like, okay, now I'm too alkaline, but will you have the wherewithal when you're so listless and pale and hardly anything to you? Will you have the wherewithal to be able to handle it now taking in acid? Like meat, milk, and cheese and eggs? Ask a person who's elderly in the hospital, in hospice. They're so alkaline that they can't fucking see straight. You think they'd be like, okay, now it's time for me to eat a big fucking steak. No, they're not going to do that. When you become that alkaline or that acidic to the point of where you're in hospice, you really think you're going to be able to balance that out now? And release the pressure or take on the pressure? You won't have the presence of mind to even fucking do that. You're too far gone. And that's most of the population out there. Okay? So... And so if the body becomes too alkaline, increased carbon dioxide in the lungs through hypoventilation, too much ventilation, or decreased breathing. The body can also increase or decrease bicarbonates levels in the blood by increasing or decreasing breathing rate. The kidneys work to increase the elimination of bicarbonate through urine. So, anyone that says, oh yeah, I want to be alkaline or I'm too acidic, they're playing the fucking game of the holistic world. And they're fucking up their system even more. Because they're being sold all these things, and they have so much crap in their colon and in their intestines, they're not working from a blank slate. They're just compounding the issue. That's why the holistic people are wasting away. Just look at them. They're either too acidic, and they're trying to balance it out, but they can't because they're working from a very tainted platform. And they think everything is great because they don't feel anything. No, they're just selling you they're selling ice to Eskimos. Anyways, can you sell ice? Yeah, you can sell ice to Eskimos. But then that also implicates that people are stupid. Well, I was stupid at one point too. Okay? So when holistic people get all crazy about acid, staying away from meat and milk and cheese and eggs and all that, and then drinking a shit ton of alkaline water, they're fucking up their biochemistry. You must have a balance. What's the alkaline balance I use? Cabbage. I don't go crazy on vegetables. I'll eat a salad. Like those little flavored salads with the dressings and stuff. But I don't go and buy a shit ton of vegetables and be like, okay, I'm going to eat all these vegetables and that's it, with a tiny bit of meat. No. I have a whole bunch of meat because I'm mostly meat. And what do I use the vegetables for? Like cabbage or a salad to offset the acid. But if you're all about vegetables and hardly any meat, then you look at a person, they're fucking skinny because they're basically a vegetable. They're exactly what they eat. Proportions of alkaline and acid is directly correlative to what their body type is. So my husband, hardly any alkaline, mostly acid. He could stand to, I'm going to feed him some cabbage and he'll make him shit. That's good. But you see, my husband, he eats meat and milk and cheese and eggs. And he is, a country boy. He has been living off of milk and meat and cheese and eggs with a little bit of vegetables. And then you go to California, right? And they're all about vegetables. and they're vegan or vegetarian, and then look, they're skinny. So yeah, they're working out, but there's nothing fucking to them. When the climate changes and they have worked so hard, they've worked their bodies so hard to the point where it weakens the bonds in their heart muscles and their liver muscles and their respiratory muscles and their esophagus, and just they have to cough one time, they start ripping muscles, injuring themselves because they can't even handle to release the freaking demons because they have to cough. And you're too afraid to cough and you let your muscles and your coughing mechanism atrophy, then all those demons are sitting inside creating a cesspool of shit, and then people are suffering. The demons are stuck inside of them. And so that's how you know when people are really skinny and they pride themselves on really skinny, they're way too fucking alkaline. But they're also acidic on some level because those demons inside of them are eating everything out from the inside, causing everything to go to jelly. And so, that's why understanding my method and going through the process of release and eating all food, regardless of where it comes from, that's the only fucking way you're going to survive climate change. Only way. Because what's going to happen in this environment, people's intentions of starvation and fear is going to realize their outcome sooner. Because there's nothing to them, or there's so much to them, it's taxing the fuck out of them, and everything is melting off their body, and their vital organs are weakening. And that is what's going on right now. People are contracting diseases prematurely because in this environment, it has accelerated exponentially. And so what's the alkaline balance I use? Cabbage. And maybe a salad, right? I don't go crazy on vegetables. When people are full of shit and you have to release that crap systematically, they are very acidic. That's why before you get all crazy about balancing your acids and alkaline, you must release that demon, or plural, demons, or else you're working from a tainted background. And that's everyone out there. And all the detoxes and laxatives and everything else fuck up your system even more. And so there is a literal organic way to release the demons. And it's not glamorous, and it's in my book. The hardest lesson I learned, the Jell-O is very acidic. I overdid it, okay? Because Jell-O is amino acids. It's not bad, but of course everything is in moderation. All right, before I was able to have Jell-O and no big deal, but I overdid it. Plus I was getting over from alcohol shit, so that fucked it up even more. And so now I got to just chill out, stay away from some amino acids right now because I'm really overextended with them. I have enough of them in my body that I can be okay without taking straight freaking amino acid, which is in gelatin. I should have done, if hindsight was 2020, I should have done a ton of cabbage with that Jell-O. And so these are the lessons that you learn, not because some holistic person told me, not because I read it somewhere, but when you actually feel, when you actually know what you're eating, right? You know the Jell-O is acidic, and then you realize it's brought up a bunch of acids because it's trying to counter from so much acid, and then you have an acid war in your body. And then you eat you read about the acid stuff and what potentially cures it, and then that's what we were going over the other day. And salt will give it a cure, but you can't be using salt all the time because it's only temporary. You will still have to feel that energy at some point. And so then they're like, oh, well, eat some salad. But see, when they said the salad, they said because it had water in it. But no, that's not really. It has the alkaline, the alkaloids that are in the salad is what calms down the heartburn. But you don't want to ever get to that point where you have to take a salad for your fucking heartburn. Because it means that you still have the disease in you. You still have that demon in you. And now you're using food as medicine. That's what we were doing when me and Audrey were talking about that stuff. Okay? You don't want to ever use food as medicine because then you're managing a disease. You want to pull out the fucking disease. And so when people are like eating spicy food, which is basically acidic, and they're on sodium bicarbonate, like that guy Mike, I see on his Facebook, he puts a lot of spices like hot chili peppers. And then when I was talking about using salt for heartburn and stuff, he's like, well, why don't you use, or what do you think about sodium bicarbonate, which is basically baking soda? I'm like, I don't see a problem with that. Okay, like anything, if you want some temporary relief, do what you got to do. But the whole root of it is you hold that demon within. And when you are stuck on spicy foods, and spicy foods are so acidic, that's why people get sensitive to peppers and nightshades and tomatoes and milk and meat and chicken eggs, okay? Because they hold the demon within. That's all the food allergies is because the demon's within. But also, you have enough of, like again, I have enough of the amino acids that taking straight amino acid through the Jell-O is going to cause me to have another heartburn situation again. And so I got to let my body work with what I gave it the other day and let it do its thing. So it's not that I'm intolerant to that specific food, it's because I have enough of it in my body that I don't want my body to react in defense because I overdid it. And right now, right now, eating straight Jell-O will overdo it. And so it'll be a while before I have Jell-O. It'll be a while. But I mean, that was a freaking lesson right there. And so these are the lessons you learn, not because some holistic naturopathic told me. I don't learn it from reading somebody else's situation. I personally experienced the situation, and I saw how my biochemistry responded. And personal lessons are the hardest, but they are the easiest to remember because you remember the pain. That's why pain is so important to understand how to characterize it. And so yes, correlation meant causation in that time around the heartburn and taking the amino acids, developing acid in my body, and then causing it to come up and cause the burping such sensations. Because you never, ever forget the pain. And then you learn how to do things, how to balance everything out. But again, you have to work from a very purified platform, or else you are compounding the shit. And so I hope you all learn hard lessons so you remember. I hope you don't take anyone's word for anything. You research what makes up acids and alkaline and release your own demons. Eat every single food out there. And cabbage is the best as far as alkaline vegetable, in my opinion. Okay, you all have your personal vegetable that you go to, that's fine. But the cabbage family is a great alkaline vegetable to use. And so the aging process is the person is either too alkaline or too acidic. And of course they're starving. And just so you know, spicy food is very acidic, which is why when you rely predominantly on spicy food, you will age faster. Because the acids are eating up everything on the inside, and of course you're under pressure, melting everything off your bones. And that's why those in India, when they're living off the curries and the cayenne peppers, a lot of skinny people that rely on that. Then you have the bigger people who are relatively proportioned because they have now the milk and the meat. But you see the deterioration of people as they get older because of how many spices they use. The jalapenos, the cayenne peppers, the wasabi, the horseradish, all the spicy stuff. Yeah, I can't do that. Not anymore. But now you see why. It's acidic, very acidic. And so, oh yeah, the homeopathic remedies. See, all these people are like, oh, I'm also against acidic stuff, right? I'm all about alkaline. Here, drink my alkaline water. Here, buy my alkaline supplements. Everything got to be alkaline, alkaline, alkaline. And they're taking homeopathic remedies that are acidic. That's the craziness about the holistic world. They don't understand what the hell they're doing. They look at all these names and they don't make the correlation. And so while they're all about alkaline, everything got to be alkaline, so I'm too acidic, they're taking so much acids in their homeopathic remedies. They're elderberry syrups. They're turmeric and honey and apple cider vinegar, right? Acetic acid. And people use homeopathic remedies as well as so many aggressive spices. Ginger, turmeric, cayenne pepper, curries, jalapenos. That's why people in the holistic world are falling apart. They're so full of acid because of all the remedies, and then they only eat salad. And then there's nothing to them. And if there's something to them, it's all gelatin and bone, right? Cannabis also produces a lot of acid. In summary, these many investigations indicated that capitate stalked trichomes are the most biosynthetically active in cannabis, producing acidic cannabinoids, with their concentration increasing during the female plant flowering period. So you figure all the cannabis users are so full of acid, melting everything off their skin, everything in their body. And so study of an acid group of homeopathic remedies. Homeopathic remedies derived from mineral kingdom are fluoric acid, muriatic acid, nitric acid, phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid, and acetic acid, because it's also in the vinegars. Like the apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. And then some of those little nematodes also thrive in acetic acid. Okay? I've seen that through my studies. And so the original acids from the mineral and vegetable kingdoms, homeopathic remedies derived from the mineral kingdoms are fluoric acid, muriatic acid, nitric acid, phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid. They derived from the vegetable kingdom are acetic acid, benzoic acid, lactic acid, oxalic acid. Acid groups of homeopathic remedies. Each acid has its own peculiarity and action on the human body. When considering the homeopathic group of remedies, you will find certain general characteristics of an acid group. Predominant miasm, syphilitic, diathesis, hemorrhagic, sphere in action, mucus, membrane producing inflammation, ulceration. These are from, I guess, different acids. And then mucous membrane producing inflammation, ulceration, glands, skin, blood, nervous system, digestive organs, bone. And then constitution, lean, thin, tubercular constitution with stooped shoulders and premature old look. Hence, you'll find most of the acid groups of remedies are indicated in case of diabetes mellitus. And then sulp acid, phosac, flac acid, oxalic acid. Okay. The mind, poor memory, lack of concentration, and destruction of all thinking, power, irritability. Now you're looking at the humors, okay? And what's in the bile and how those humors are programmed through the acids. And then people take acid, right, to do acid trips when they're doing the whole psychedelic shit. And so the mind, of how the acids influence the mind. Poor memory, lack of concentration, destruction of all thinking, power, irritability, oversensitiveness, hateful, vindictive, irritable, destructive qualities, activities, self-egoism, attention towards pleasure-seeking inputs, depression, listless, dejection. Characteristics of an acid group of remedies: chilly, sensitive to cold drafts, cold in general, exception, fluoric acid, weakness, +3, burning sensation due to irritation of nerves, oversensitive to external impressions, destruction, ulceration, septicemia, night aggravation, amelioration, motion and rest. The importance of studying group symptoms of remedies is when PQRS symptoms found in case points of certain groups, it becomes easy to narrow down remedies and select the final one by referring to the material medica of corresponding remedy. And so, so now you see how the remedies world has changed people's biochemistry and personality and got them on the track to death faster prematurely. So now you see Hollywood. Now you see how drug shapes a person's character and emotion. So now we're into the 4 humors. Okay, so what are these 4 temperaments? Sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. Now I claim to be phlegmatic, but really you have to have some phlegm with a little color. This morning when I was hawking up loogies, and I'm not really particularly sick, but that loogie had red in it. Okay? Like literally that loogie had red in it. I was like, wow, where the hell did that come from? And I'm not particularly, I had a few hives, I'm itching a few times here and there, but no big deal. A few hives in my body, but no big deal. But I had red. Imagine if I had yellow, right? When people have yellow in their phlegm, holy crap. Then they're like irritable. They're irritated. And the energy, there's probably some infection. When you have irritation, you have infection. And then someone has black bile. Well, have I ever seen myself sad and see what I've never looked at black. But I'm sure when they go and open people up and they figure this person's melancholic, this person's choleric, and this person's sanguine, that they're like, okay, well, their bile is red, yellow, and black and white, right? And so when I say phlegmatic, it means that I'm more of like the stoic, not too emotional. I have my sense of humor, but it's really more of like, I'm just more of the intellectual, non-emotional, But then when I see things like the stuff going on with LA and the hurricanes, and I know people are going to be suffering, and I see, then I become irritated. Okay. But not because I'm irritated at the people, I'm irritated at the situation. And so, but I'm mostly phlegmatic, but then touches of the other humors. Okay. The 4 temperaments. So then let's look at that. That's ultimately where you want to be, because you don't want to be out of control where you're so irritable, you're always happy, and then you're always melancholic. You want to have that white with a touch of each of them every so often based upon the triggers in the environment and what you're trying to convey. Okay? So now you see Hollywood. Now you see how drugs shapes a person's character and emotion. All right? So people are taking the happy drugs because they're so, they lack dopamine and everything else. Oh, God. So I said I'm phlegmatic with touches of other humors. The programming of people through the acids. Bile acids are steroid acids found predominantly in the bile of mammals and other vertebrates. Excuse me. Sorry. Diverse bile acids are synthesized in the liver. Bile acids are conjugated with taurine or glycine residues to give anions called bile salts. Preliminary or primary bile acids are those synthesized by the liver. So that's why you need a healthy liver. Okay. And so Greek physician, this is when I was studying the Greek mythology and the Greek history, and then I was studying all the Sumerian pantheon, So Greek physician Hippocrates is often credited with developing the theory of 4 humors: blood, yellow, bile, black bile, and phlegm. So when people are happy and they're drinking alcohol and their face goes into flesh and they're like, yee, or they're like rudely cheerful and they're sarcastic. Okay, that's the blood, that's the sanguine. That's like Robin Williams, right? And so Greek physician Hippocrates often credited with developing the theory of 4 humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, and their influence on the body and its emotions. And so again, if you're all like cracking jokes all the time, and John cracks jokes all the time, everything is funny to him, and that's great. Funny is great, but and then I see the switches to then anger. Okay, and so I don't see too much sadness, right? But it's like I see with John. I'm going to just use John as an example because John's out there and he's my friend, so I could speak plainly. And so I see him go back and forth between the witty and the humor, and it's smart humor too, and also can be dark humor, and then the little bit of the anger. Now, will there be melancholy somewhere? But he won't let himself get melancholic because he doesn't want to be depressed. That's not him. And so, is there a way to temper that? Well, that's all based upon programming. Does he want to temper that? It just depends. So that's what I'm saying. The changes of personality is because it's based upon the changes of your biochemistry. And it's not bad. Because when you're not predominantly in like humor all the time, you're not predominantly in anger all the time, then there's something else available that will give you another opening into something else. And when someone is all like someone's all happy all the time, and they never get angry, and they never get sad, or they're always happy, then they're stuck in that world. And then there's nothing else really available because they don't have any emotion to give them another way of looking at something. And so when I felt that pain of that heartburn shit, that opened up another door of awareness, intellectual capacity, and it was the pain that changes you. That's what I'm saying. Every single time I dealt with COVID and all of its different symptoms based upon my biochemistry, I had another awareness, another awareness, another awareness. Okay? And so it's okay, if you guys don't hardly get mad, it's okay to get mad. And not all the time, but it's okay to it's okay to just emote. Not force it out because you think you should. But I'll tell you, that kind of release, when you're harboring so much of that stuff in you and you're told not to release the anger or the sadness, and you're told always to be happy, and now you get the freedom to release those demons, can you imagine what other shit that is available? When you have all these love people all over Facebook, everybody's about fucking love. Do they have the capacity to be intellectually capable to say something different, do something different? Do they have the ability to be mad? When you're in love, it also goes to hate, so you can see the madness. People are all about love too, especially if you cross them. But what about not being about love, love, love? Could you not be about love, 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 and clasping your hands together, praying for everyone and everything, and praying that you hope you get saved by somebody? Can you be not that for a minute? I mean, that's the thing, is when you are something that you've predominantly been, can you not be that? Or can you be that you weren't? I mean, you can, but it's about tapping in to releasing the demons and taking on other programming to give you then that creativity and a different awareness and a different perspective. And so what is sanguine? Sanguine. This is Robin Williams, to give you the extreme side. Optimistic, positive, bullish, hopeful, buoyant, positive, confident, cheerful, cheery, bright, assured, upbeat, of good cheer. Opposite is pessimistic, gloomy. Literary, blood red. Red's power. Choleric. Hold on. Choleric. Bad-tempered or irritable. He was choleric, self-important little man. Right, like little Napoleon. Bad-tempered, irascible, irritable, grumpy, grouchy, crotchety, tetchy, testy, crusty, cantankerous, curmudgeonly, ill-tempered, ill-natured, ill-humored, peevish, cross, fractious, disagreeable, pettish, crabbed, crabby, waspish, prickly, peppery, touchy, scratchy, splenetic, from the spleen, shrewish, short-tempered, hot-tempered, quick-tempered, dyspeptic, and bilious, like bile, liverish, cross-grained, argumentative, quarrelsome, uncooperative, contrary, perverse, difficult, awkward, snappish, snappy, chippy, short-fused, shirty, stroppy, narky, ratty, eggy, like a bear with a sore head, cranky, ornery, peckish, sore-headed, snaky, waxy, miffy. Opposites, good-natured, affable, a choleric disposition. Influenced by predominating in the humor called choler, a choleric disposition. And then there's melancholic, feelings or expressing pensive sadness. Okay? His work often has wistful or melancholic mood, denoting or affected with severe form of depression. Patients with melancholic depression. Phlegmatic, of a person having unemotional and stolidly calm disposition, the phlegmatic British character. So the English, at least the royal family, have prided themselves to be more phlegmatic than not. Their whole demeanor, their public demeanor is phlegmatic. They don't show emotion. And that was for an intention. They don't want to influence the population. I mean, you watch King Charles speak. He speaks like an English dude. He just reads the words and whatever. But when you watch Trump and how he's so emotional, and that's how he uses power, through his emotions, his cantankerousness, his choleric behavior. That's how he gets people all riled up to be angry at something. And then you watch the British, how they do shit. They just speak. And they don't put humor into it, really. They don't put anger into it, really. They don't put love and emotion into it. They just read the words, and this is the information. You figure it out. I like that. I think that's actually pretty honorable. Because you're not intending to influence the audience in any way. Because salesmen are emotional. Very emotional. And so Head on a Swivel, the Canadian wildfire. So watch that. Okay, so now let's look at the 4 humors as far as eating in the Renaissance. Which humors or bodily fluids associated with sanguine temperament? Okay, and so one humor will generally predominate and characterize an individual's overall temperament or complexion. Too much blood, for example, results in sanguine personality, and an overabundance of black bile makes one melancholy. So when you look at someone that has rosacea, you know they're probably more of a sanguine personality. Okay, for the most part. Not all the time. But when you look, that's how they're able to kind of tell people's personalities, through their complexion. Okay? So in The Taming of the Shrew, Petruchio attempts to squelch Catherine's hot temper by denying her meat, snatching away a roast that he claims was burnt and dried away, and thus likely to engender choler. And better, twere both of us did fast, he offers by way of explanation, since of ourselves are choleric. So he's trying to now mitigate food so it doesn't trigger that behavior out of her. And so he offers by way of explanation, since ourselves are choleric. While his methods may be imperious and his motivation suspect, Petruchio's reasoning nonetheless expresses dietary philosophy prevalent during the Renaissance period. And Shakespeare was out of the Renaissance period. And so that's why you have those, like in the Hispanic or the Chola culture, they have those massive smile now and cry later. That's all based on Shakespeare and the humors and the use of different drugs to encourage specific humors to come out. And so then I said, now I know why I can tell when someone does or does not release their prior programming. You could hear it in their tone on Facebook and see it in their face, which tells me it will be very difficult for many people to actually save themselves. They're too attached to their current programming right now. The programming of people runs extremely deep, and after years and years of reinforcing the predominant humor at the surface, many people are so attached to their suffering in the excessive humors running them. Okay, and I said when personality is at the surface, I said this many times before, that's what people are suffering from, that specific programming that is forced at the surface, that they have relied on to get them by, to make them money and all that, but there's a suffering with that. And so when you release that programming at the surface, and you allow other programming to come in and to give you a different perspective so you can save yourself, then, man, worlds open up. But when you are forced to stay in that specific programming, being so happy or being so sad or always being angry or never showing any emotion and nothing can get to you, so you're impenetrable, none of that's going to fucking work, because Hippocrates knows that there's supposed to be a balance between all of those humors. You can't be just so phlegmatic. You can't be just so witty all the time and funny all the time. And you can't always just be so mad all the time or melancholic and sad all the time. There's got to be appropriate times, because when you have too much of any humor at the surface running the fuck out of you, it wears you down. That's the antigen antibody programming. That's the humors, is the antigen antibody programming. There's an antigen and there's an antibody, and they're always in conflict. And that's the energy conversion that happened. And that's what breaks people down. There's so much energy, so much conflict in the body, because they cannot balance out their humors and they can't release the programming. Because that programming in their colon is what is the root of all of their suffering. And then when they eat stuff, they don't understand why they're allergic, why they get these reactions. Because, yes, your colon has stuff, but your body may have enough of stuff, and it has to build up gradually. If you're going to take on more collagen or more of the connective tissue type of stuff, the acids to do that, you have to allow the body to be able to process what you already have and allow it to do what it needs to do and give it time. And so that's why everything is, I don't have to have Jell-O, but I have to have meat. I have to have milk. I have to have cheese. I have to have eggs. I must have cabbage. But I don't need the Jell-O. I don't need those amino acids that are sold in the holistic store. Okay? And so that's why you have to understand what it is. That's why you have to understand what it is you're eating. I'm not saying that it's poison. Nothing is poison. It's balancing your biochemistry. Okay, so now I'm saying the program of people runs extremely deep, and after years and years of reinforcing the predominant humor at the surface, many people are so attached to their suffering in the excessive humors running them. I know for a fact it is very difficult to penetrate them with new information because they see nothing wrong with their current personality. Nothing is inherently wrong, but they are suffering, resisting, and dying someday. And they hope they survive their own natural causes. However, there's no intention on their end to actually survive, only hope. They hope the hospital system or there's some herbalist down the street or even Jillian can save them from suffering, which means they intend to pass away hoping it will be pain-free. Excuse me. Hold on. Because you can see them praying for somebody to save them. When people don't have intention to survive, they stay stuck in the swirling humors of suffering, begging for a way out. I had cream of wheat this morning. That's why I'm burping, sorry. Clasping their hands together. And then over time, they become bitter. They become that old person down the street you don't ever cross. The person turned into a cliche. And so people have no intention to survive. They're looking for someone to give them the answer with no intention of finding the answers on their own. They can't even suffer to live. They beg to suffer to pass away. You can see it in their intention. No drive to learn new information, always asking somebody what to do, always asking somebody for advice, and always needing to gather. That was bred into us back from the 1960s cult revolution. Extreme activism and excessive suffering, and always clasping your hands in prayer for someone to save you. You give yourself away when you use that emoji of clasping your hands together like this, okay? It's not a high five, though it could be taken like that. And so what happens, people are always using this, they're showing their weakness. When you're always doing this, I'm serious. People are like, oh, no, it shows that you're honoring someone. Bullshit. What this shows is you're begging for someone to accept you. You're begging for someone to give you the answer. You're begging for them to give you the right energy so you can survive. Why do you think all these different yogi people and shamans always doing this to each other, bowing to each other? Because they are bowing in supplication. What is bowing in supplication? Let's look it up. What is supplication? The act of asking or begging for something earnestly or humbly. And so when you're doing this, you're begging people. You are begging, you are bowing down to that person, and you don't bow to fucking no one. But if you do, if you want to give away your power to people like by doing this all the time, I can read it. I see people do that on my Facebook. And you can't break people from that because that's what was bred into them. That was the weakness that was bred into them. Hey, you can say I'm insulting, but that's what you're doing. That's begging. I don't fucking beg. In my opinion, you shouldn't beg either, but people do. And so you're showing your weakness. What if looking for a savior never had to be? What if you could save yourself, but on that token, you would have to admit nobody else has a power over you, and you're not giving away your power to anyone else. So where does that leave religion and spirituality? When you finally realize you have all the power, there goes your religion, there goes your spirituality, there goes your excuse that it's somebody else's fault or giving credit to somebody else all the time. What if you can release the excessive programming given to you at birth, and then you program yourself with complete control over your programming? However, you would have to admit your lifestyle and your belief system was always also a programming from somebody else who sought to control your body, your mind, and your spirit, and your bank account. How many of you are willing to admit you have been programmed by someone else? How many of you are willing to admit right now you have no free will, really, when you think about it? Oh, but I can go down to the street to my mailbox. I can go do this. If you had free will, you'd be able to change your personality. You'd be able to change your lifestyle. You'd have to change your belief system. You'd have to change the way you interact with the world. You could become a totally different person. See, free will is the ability to change and be chameleonic and change at the drop of a dime. But when you have no free will, you're stuck in this personality. You're stuck in a loop. You're stuck in a loop like a ghost. Ghosts go back and forth, and the last time that they had an energetic event, like you see in these ghost adventures, and they're stuck looping between running away from a killer or running towards a killer. And that's all they're reliving every single fucking day. They can't get out of that loop. They're stuck in that personality, they're stuck in that lifestyle, they're stuck in their belief systems, and they don't think it's stuck. They just think that's just the way life is. That's just the way the world is. Yeah, it is. But then you have no free fucking will. You're just a robot that was programmed. Try telling that to someone who believes in politics, religion, and science dogmas. That you have no free fucking will. 'Cause if you had free will, you could be a totally different person today if you wanted to. You'd have totally different things to say on your Facebook if you wanted to. You would go and research new shit, and you would train your mind to know how to talk about it or know how to write about it. You would have such a different thought process. You'd have so much to offer because you not only have a background of what your personality is today, but you've taken on other personalities and other perspectives and points of view. So how many of you are willing to question the roles you're in right now? That's why we're in a great reset. This is why California is going to get fucked up by this hurricane. California has so many people programmed through humors. And there's so much suffering in California. I mean, everywhere else too, but California is like the center of the universe, right? That's why the tropical system came from the southern waters to north, not only because the warm waters fed the energy to the hurricane, but Los Angeles is the epicenter of all the humors. And every single one of you identify with somebody in Hollywood, because Hollywood identifies with every single one of you. That is Hollywood. That is hero worship. That's politics. That's religion. That's all the science dogmas. That's why the 1960s were so poignant. Poignant. Now you get the stars who were once Now you get to see the stars who were once rising, falling from grace. Because those humors wore, W-A-R, or W-O-R-E off. That's why there's so much suffering in the future for children, because their parents model their children after somebody in Hollywood. Parents right now are suffering from all the humors. If they can't release all the excessive humors, their children stand no chance. That's why it's important. That's why it's so important to understand what's going on. And if you are bitter, angry, crotchety, and maybe elderly, you are predominantly choleric. Activists are crotchety and they're bitter with a touch of melancholy. And they're always doing this to everybody. All right? Because they're suffering. Very rarely are they happy unless they see their grandkids or children, which brings up the oxytocin and a dopamine effect. And then when the grandkids leave or animal dies, they're back to being crotchety and bitter until they replace that animal or find more kids to hang out with. Now, I know I'm being very cynical, but that's what kids and animals elicit. They elicit a dopamine effect, and it's oxytocin, and it's pleasure. Okay? That's the only way you can love your kids and guide them the right way is through that oxytocin. But again, like anything, when you are relying on that dopamine effect, then when your kids grow up, then who are you, parent? Who are you without your children? Who are you without your animals? And that's why people surround themselves with children and surround themselves with animals, because it's a dopamine effect. It's the oxytocin release that they are dying for. That's why the Vampire Diaries and the vampires talk about cannibalizing animals and humans, because people need that dopamine loop effect. And so, which is why animals and children are like drugs for people who can't develop their own balance. Now you see why there are so many predators in our society hooked on the human humors. Which is why I don't have any children or animals, because I know how seductive the hormones and the humors are in children and animals. I will not be controlled by anyone. I will pay my taxes, I will follow the laws, and have complete control over my biochemistry. And so, yeah, after that bout with my dog Sugar, that was so painful. That whole situation was so painful. That taught me a huge lesson. That taught me a lesson that until I don't know, man. I don't know. I wouldn't get a pet, because I know what will happen. I'll get so drunk off that oxytocin, that dopamine effect, that when that animal eventually has to pass away because maybe they're not built to live longer than a certain span. And could they potentially, get out of that program and go to a new one? Well, we have not been conditioned to deal with that suffering going from one evolution to another. When we try to evolve as humans and animals, we have been told to scoop it away, butcher it out. We've been told to cure it. We've been told to drug it out. So we have never been conditioned to deal with the evolution of animals and humans. But you're watching my evolution. And we also tried to see if Sugar could evolve. But she had too much damage from her prior surgeries in the veterinary system, in the Humane Society system. And so that wasn't going to be anything. So hopefully people in my J world who have animals, maybe their animals might be able to survive, given that the owner knows about all the acids and all the alkaline and how to make sure their dog survives or their cat survives without having to be forced to put him down. And so now you know what my way of releasing demons is the only fucking way, because your shit has been programmed. And the only way you're going to release yourself from the torture is if you understand my information. If not, you will compound your issues with everything everyone recommends to you through the attempts to balance your biochemistry. But you have no idea you're working from a very tainted background of trauma and excessive humors. Remember Robin Williams, comedic sanguine humor, and then the opposite of sanguine is darkness and then suicide. That's why people are suffering, fighting the darkness, because they are so lopsided and they can't even recognize that. And so when you are so stuck in your shit, you can't see the light outside. You're in the darkness. And then and that to you is normal until it isn't, until you can't take it anymore. And then you beg for someone to save you, but you can only save yourself. And so in that movie or that series, Van Helsing, and Vanessa was fighting the darkness. She was literally fighting herself. And that's what these Hollywood actors go through, because they've been programmed to be a specific character, typecasted, and they've been programmed since birth. You saw Hollywood through the years of generations. You see these gorgeous girls like Uma Thurman and her mother, and you saw all the stars from the 90s and the 2000s. They came from the parents of the 1960s and 70s. And then before that was the 1930s and 40s. And so you saw how Hollywood developed the generations of people who've been programmed to be sexual, to be intellectual, to be funny, to be melancholic, to be angry, to be a serial killer. Now you see all the types of programming in people. And so even sexuality is programmed into people, because there is a gene for that. Every single sexual orientation, everything. And even you can even asexual types where you can't tell which gender. Okay? So everything has been programmed. Everything. And so if you want to give yourself another lease on life, you literally have to pull out the old programming and still feed yourself simultaneously and watch your personalities change. Watch things change. Could you stay with the same personality and reinforce your body, your mind, and your spirit? Well, we're finding out. But I'll tell you, when you're born with a specific programming, and there's so much of it, if you can't release some of that programming and take on something else, I don't know. Would you be able to release the demons the way I have in my book, eat all the food, and still remain the same? And still remain the same as far as going from one personality to another? I don't know. We're going to find out. But I know the last 7 years, my personalities have changed drastically. My awarenesses have changed drastically. My skill sets have changed drastically. My ability to comprehend information that fucking quickly has changed drastically. That's because I released the demons. And I took on information. Took on new information to me. It may not be new information to academia, who's been writing the textbooks and the ISO standards, but it's new information to me, and then I put it all together. I mean, this whole thing with the four humors, I wrote about this a couple of years ago, but I didn't know how to I didn't know how to use it, and I didn't know how to develop a context around it. But I finally did, because I remember everything I wrote the last 7 years. Pretty much I know everything I wrote. And I studied so much of the Greek pantheon, the Sumerian pantheon, a lot of the religions. I studied a lot. I intended not only to survive, but I intended to understand people and their religions, their belief systems, their cultures. I want to understand people. I want to understand what runs them. Because then you learn about yourself. And then you have tolerance for the world. And that's what this world needs, is a lot more tolerance, a lot more evolution, and a lot more peace, but not rest in peace. But right now, we're not in it. We're in some fucking crazy shit. And I hope that storm does not decimate Southern California and Central California, but in Nevada and Arizona. But you know what the intention is right now. We're in a large scale down. You are now competing against your neighbor to survive. Well, part of that survival is intellectual evolution. And then you have to behaviorally change. And maybe we get the gift of seeing a different personality from you, if that ever comes up. All right. That's it. Bye.